you've probably all heard that something that's well designed in the tech industry just disappears in front of you. And so when something works well, it just is has disappeared. When you look at your phone, you just know how to make it work, really. And that's after years and years of designers, really great designers in the background making small adjustments to make our lives seem like we're not noticing the technology, or that the technology is able to morph into our bodies in a way that makes it work. And so one of the things that I think has happened over these number of weeks is there's a lot of technology embedded in this project, and yet it's all kind of hidden away or very subtly experienced, um, and yet present, very present, and you could hear it. So when I was working in here with the drawing machine, at one point we did a warm-up exercise, and at first I did what other people did too, which is follow the shadows of the projection that of your numbers, your dates. But then I started to become in tune with the space itself and the experience of slowing myself down, right? Because core to a lot of Yujie's research is this idea that we are working and living within a fast-paced, cosmopolitan environment network, right? And that in acts of humanity, we recognize each other when we slow things down, and we form connections, very strong and valuable connections in that quiet moment where we stop and be in the present. And so when I was trying to, or making the effort to pause in the moment, I listened to the machine, the drawing machine. And so while it was recording or showing the date since you came to Canada, then I was here in your space with you, participating in your project and responding to the actions or the sounds of the drawing machine, which made my body move and record the time on the wall, really as a warm up in terms of trying to get into the space. This piece. Oh, yeah, so there it is. So at this point of the I hadn't. Oh yeah, it's behind my head, so you can't see it. But this is when we started to really kind of flow into the process. To, yeah, and we had lovely moments where we laughed, right? And so I it's a pleasure to be able to do that. It's an honor, and it's also a privilege to be able to stop and enjoy somebody's company and to dedicate your thinking and your time to sharing a moment with somebody and making something creative with them. And I think that that's very important within this very layered technology space that we're operating in. So, and it's a very delicate, this was realized, this project is really realized in a very delicate way because you have the projection, you have the drawing machine, you have the live feed happening, you have the sound being muffled and distorted for any audience that you have there. You have the chaos of the space, you have the torn objects, you have your internet connection that is not was not easy to build. And so recognizing that you can find that peace within that chaos is quite important, and I think kind of a very good aspect of this PhD project that we need to pay attention a little bit more to those moments of quiet and connection and tenderness.
Yeah, one of the reason I want to do this like in such a long duration because I'm here 7 hours a day, and whenever alternator is open, for 6 weeks. So the reason I want to take such a long time here is first it can contain everything. I want to be here to create a space whenever audience came in, they could participate in their own way. So some people came in singing with the space, some people dance with the space, with the um, rhythm on the wall, and some people draw. Um, it just for me, they could just live here. They could just be here as they are, and they could really take their own time. And for me, like most of the things I do in life, I felt I have to rush myself, or like I aware that I'm very slow on so many things in terms of like thinking, writing, reading, being. But this is a moment for me that's important to me because I know I have all the time I need. And I know I can just be here, be in my own pace to do one action and then to reflect on it and then to react. So there's like space, there's like empty space in time that to be free. Um, yeah. It's going very slow. This process.
I was drawing slowly.
Yes. So what we are doing here is we started with empty. This is also what I often do with the participant. Is we start with empty canvas, and then we each take turn to go up on the canvas to just draw a line. And what I think is just how to draw a free line. And that's
You were much faster at it. I was very,
you're taking your time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was really engaged with the process.
Hmm.
It was such a pleasure. And not only, to be in the experience and to give over to that experience, and contribute. Yeah, this is quite a nice. You can see here. These were the sounds. Like these are the sounds of the machine, and um, this was the projection of my body in the space, which was riffing off another piece that she had done. There, she is on the wall, right? So looking around the space and picking up on cues and embedding your own thoughts and history in the space as well.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, as you are in the space, you start to adding sense or adding realizations to different elements. As Megan was doing, start to realize the visuals, the sound, the other elements. The like I feel like that's the coexistence with their own time, with machine, you, me.
And you bring in your own biases too, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm so interested in technology and how that affects our lives. So I, brought that in a little bit as much. And graphically too, I was very excited by the way that we could make these big strokes of lines across the space. The other thing that we haven't talked about are rules. So, and the way that algorithms play a part in Yujie's work, and that comes back to the conversation on computational practices in art. But we did have rules in this process because we both generally operate with some sort of like constraints when we build our own work, or when you build a graphic image, you often start with a constraint. Um, it may not look like there were many rules there, but there were. We talked about the gradient that we had moving across,
Mm-hmm.
but then each placement of paper and texture also had its own narrative. And so I would often place things so that I could see a shape form across it of texture or, um,
Yeah, it's a puzzle of our own
mhm.
because in a way, how we place those paper back is um, from our own background, from our own training that is in our blood, or like we don't necessarily need to think about. A lot of things I do think about is really foundational forms like point, line.
Yeah, but we only know those things because we're taught them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're taught to draw a line in a particular way, to not have a feathering approach to it, to be confident to go from A to B. We're taught to like draw a house, and the house looks in like it does in a particular way. And before we're taught to do all those things, we don't draw in those ways. We if you watch children draw, they draw where you know, with their bodies, with to the sound, to the in much more intuitive ways. And once you've learned to draw, you can never go back. You know, there are so many artists who've tried. They try to go back. I've seen whole MFAs, and PhDs with incredible artists who try to find that place, but once you've learned, it's impossible. And there was this child here, and she kept coming back throughout the weeks, and she would. It was amazing to watch her. She just she did a lot of this drawing here and drawing over here, and she could be an artist. She just moved in the most incredible way, and she played with Yujie, and she would do a mark, and then she would look at Yujie and she would go,
Yeah,
you know, and she'd point
she's
to whoever in the room was supposed to engage with the work.
she's really into, like, she's into drawing itself, but she's more into the interactions between people, like you go, I go, like they take turns, and then the other person adding a line that's surprise to her, then she could go something adding something, so that's more like a puzzle solve.
Yeah,
I,
and watching her though, she looked at the instrument that she was using and then used that according to whatever texture she could create with it. And she pivoted her wrist in ways that you would not pivot once you'd learned how to use that tool, right? And I thought it was actually quite liberating to watch her. It was very good to have been in the space during that moment as well.